Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we solve a few problems with caulk that keeps cracking. Is it the wrong caulk or being used in the wrong way? We'll cover that. Also, we have a homeowner that's hearing some really strange noises in their home. We've heard about this before. We'll try to offer some suggestions on that. Also, if you have ceramic tile, you may have experienced a broken soap dish that's integrated into the tile. What do? We have the solution for that as well. Also, there's a lot of concrete. You have concrete walls, concrete fencing. If you decide you want to hang something on that concrete surface, how do you do it so that it is successful and it'll stay put? We have that solution as well. Also, there's a method of sealing ductwork by spraying sealant inside. We have a lot of questions about this. Does it work or is it another scam? We'll explore that in just a little bit. And Joe, what about that simple solution?
Well, I've got a tip on how to attach a face frame to a cabinet or bookcase or anything like that, a shelving unit, without using nails.
All right. Wow. Lots of information. Let's get started here. Let's go right to the Today's Homeowner Hotline, and I would encourage you to give us a call at any time, 800-946-4420, just like Carol did from Wisconsin. Carol, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys.
Tell us about this. You're having a little challenge with some caulking and so forth. We get a lot of calls about that, and it is a common problem, but what's happening around your house?
Well, we built a new home, and where the wall trim is, we use the white wall trim and put caulking in there, and it's starting to crack. And also we did some porcelain tile on the walls and floor in the bathroom, and that grout between the wall and the floor is also cracking. I do realize with the new house, they do settle. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering, how are we going to correct this messy problem?
Okay. All right. First of all, on those boards that you're talking about, now that's your baseboards that's running around throughout your house?
Yeah, between the wall and the floor.
Okay. And so the crack that you're seeing is just on the top of that?
Correct.
Okay. Well, during this time of the year, more than any other time of the year, there's a lot of expansion and contraction, and of course, there's a lot of contracting when it's cold, and you might have cold air inside the walls. This kind of thing will make it move a little bit. But what I have found a good bit, Carol, is on baseboards, if the trim carpenter is not paying attention and that the nails that are driving in, if they're just simply going in the drywall, which unfortunately is the case quite a bit, it will actually pull away from the wall a little bit and won't stay snug. So that's one of the things that you may be faced with, is having to go back wherever you see some of these areas and use a stud sensor to find exactly where the studs is and add additional finish nails at the top of that baseboard to snug it up a little bit. Now, you can recaulk it, but so often when the warmer months come in, you'll be amazed at how those cracks will completely close up. That happens more often on crown molding than any other type of molding, but that can be the case a lot of times on the base molding, needing to just snug that up a little bit more with some nails. Then you can just recess the nails and put a little putty over those. You can always recaulk it, and if you are the baseboards white in color?
Yes, they're white.
Okay, so you could use a good quality white acrylic latex caulk and just put a thin bead right on the top of the baseboard, and that would cover the crack and really solve the problem, because the acrylic latex caulk will stay flexible, so that if there is a little bit of movement later, then that should take care of that part of it.
So I don't have to remove the old caulk that's there?
No, if there's any of it that appears to be holding it away from the wall, you might have to pull a little bit of it away, but just kind of push it with your hands a little bit and see if there's, if it will, attach to the wall, if it'll snug up tight to the wall, then that's not a problem. But if you see the caulk is holding it out, you'll have to reach in there with a putty knife and try to slice that caulk out of there.
Okay. How about the grout situation in our bathroom? Would that be the same thing?
It's similar, but Joe's a absolute ceramic tile porcelain expert. What do you think on that, Joe?
Yeah, Carol, we were just talking about this earlier. They often put grout at the bottom of the tile wall where it meets the tub or a floor or sink or anything else. And that really should be caulked because you have two dissimilar surfaces meeting, right? You have ceramic tile on the wall, then you have a tub or flooring or molding or whatever, wood molding. And so that really should be caulk.
Well, I don't know. Perhaps it is caulk. I just assumed it wasn't.
Okay, well, I would check that. And if it is caulk, same as what Danny was mentioning with the baseboard, you can fill it. I don't think you have to remove it either. I think you can fill in the cracks. But since this is a new house, I'm not sure I would do anything until you went at least a full year or maybe more of going through a heating and cooling cycle a couple of times, because this house is going to dry out. You have all that lumber's drying out. You have some settlement and settling going on. So, unfortunately, you might have to wait this out until everything's good and dry and then fill in those joints, and hopefully there won't be an issue next year.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, our pleasure, and thanks so much for being with us today. You have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right now, we're going to head to Florida, and we have Dave on the line. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hello, great to speak with you today from Florida's beautiful Space Coast.
Good. Well, I know a lot of people right now in different parts of the country would love to be hanging out with you in Florida with some of the bad weather in other parts of the country. But I understand that you have an inside project and one that Joe and I have worked on quite a bit. Tell us all about it.
Well, what I have is a soap dish in the master bath that had gotten busted, and it's porcelain, and it covers about 6 tiles. And I tried scoring it with a utility knife, seeing if I could get it loose, and that didn't seem to get much traction. What I'm wanting to do is not make a bad situation worse. So I'm wondering the best way to remove that and then put in a new soap dish.
Okay, all right. Well, I saw the pictures that you sent, and this is something that we've dealt with quite a bit. Of course, usually when we have a broken soap dish, we're in the process of tearing all of the tile off, and but you, in lieu of that, there is a technique to be able to remove just that soap dish without, or at least a good chance of not damaging the tiles around the perimeter of it. Now, let me ask you this: are you going to glue back in another one just like it?
I would think that would be the smart move, just because, normally there's that little kind of a sketch of where it's at. So I would like to try to find the same, or if I need to go a little bit oversized, just so I don't have that ugly scar from the old one.
Yeah, no, you can find the exact same thing and glue it right back in there. But to get this one out, just like if you were replacing a damaged tile on the floor, you start in the middle. So if you get, I would get a couple really good masonry drill bits. And then the reason I say a couple, because in my experience, it seems like the first one never lasts very long, and drill a series of holes right in the middle of that soap dish. Take your cold chisel, make sure you get a small cold chisel that's designed for masonry work, and then just chip out that center part of it. I mean, maybe something about as big as a 50-cent piece type of thing. And then just chip that out, and that will allow you to work from the center to the outside. Now, I would also try to score whatever you can. You mentioned that you already have done that to a degree, but around the outside of that where the grout is, the razor knife won't make much an indentation, but will help. And even taking a brand new cold chisel and just raking it around the perimeter to more or less score that grout so that it hopefully will not affect the adjacent tiles. Then very carefully, very slowly start prying that out, and the more cracks in the soap dish, the better, and the more holes that you have in there, the better to create those cracks, and then just slowly work that out of there, and you should be able to then, using your cold chisel, clean it up enough so that the new one can be attached in there.
So when I drill, I just want to barely get into the surface that's behind it.
Yes,
in the tiles, I don't want to go too far. Okay.
It wouldn't really matter, even if you went in, more than that. If you hit a stud or you hit the wall cavity, no big deal on that. So you can go in as much as you want. But a series of holes all the way around that will just allow you to pull that ceramic that's on the back of the center part of the soap dish out, and then you can just work away from there.
Okay, and then mortar in those holes when I do the rest of it. Would a Dremel with a blade help at all for scoring that?
Yeah, now, absolutely, and there's so many bits that are available with the Dremel tool. And Joe, that's one of the things that you recommend is to, if possible, to use one of the Dremels with the right attachment on it. Boy, you can make a lot of progress with that.
Yeah, Dave, a Dremel tool or an oscillating multi-tool with a carbide. They actually make a carbide grit blade specifically for removing grout, which is what you're probably going to be doing around the perimeter of that. But if you get the center chopped out, you can then work on the pieces, the rest of it. But by the way, you have to absolutely wear thick leather gloves because these are sharp pieces, and eye goggles, like wraparound eye goggles, or even a face shield, because this is no joke when you start hammering on this stuff. And what I would recommend, once you get it out and try, and the key is once you get a little opening, chisel at a pretty sharp angle. You don't want to damage the wall behind it. We don't know if it's drywall or it's backerboard. Either way, you don't want to ruin it. But then once it's out, you can mortar another one in place or remove the tiles around there, put in all new tiles, and then mount something up high in the corner. They have surface mount ones you just glue right in place, screw right in place, and this up above where the shower is. This way you don't have to worry about this problem again.
Right. Well, and that was one of the things I was going to mention. If anybody is doing a bathroom remodel, the last time we had this one done, which was quite some time ago, we put a second soap dish up in the far corner about elbow high. And,
right.
Most of you shower rather than bathe, and it keeps the soaps come down, and you're not bending over. So
that's exactly right, Dave. I stopped putting in the type of soap holder you have down close to the towel. I stopped putting those in years ago because they just collect water and they break off too easily.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep, and the bar of soap is always soft. Well, when you guys are down here, if you ever come down in the Space Coast, stop by and we'll go eat some fresh Florida seafood, and hey, maybe you'll catch a rocket launch. We'd love to have you as our guest.
I'll be right down.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, and thanks for being a part of the show.
For DIY projects, you know the Home Depot is always in your corner. Now with our mobile app, it can also be in the palm of your hand. With digital tools like image search, snap a picture of something, it'll recognize it and serve up product suggestions in seconds. And our product locator will check availability and lead you right to it. The Home Depot mobile app. Download it today to get started. Only from the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Let's go right back to today's homeowner hotline. We encourage you to give us a call anytime. 800-946-4420. Very easy to reach us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Joan is on the line from Florida. Joan, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. What's going on? How you all doing?
We are doing very, very well. I hope things are going well for you down in Florida. People are pretty envious of those living in Florida right now because in other parts of the country, it's a little bit colder than it is there.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful here today.
Well, tell us about what you're up against here. You got a little challenge that you're about to deal with.
Okay, so here's my situation is that I am originally from New York, and I have to have my clothesline, okay? Mm-hmm. So on my lanai outside, I have a clothesline in the door, and then it comes up to my one side of my glass doors in my bedroom. Mm-hmm. And we're getting new doors and windows, and only half of it's going to open. So I'm not going to be able to stick the clothesline in there. So the concrete wall, I'm just needing to know what do I need to anchor in there to put the clothesline on it so it's not going to come out.
Okay. Okay. Well, generally, there's lots of ways these days to attach different things to concrete block walls or any kind of concrete wall. And probably the most accepted one is what is called a lead anchor. So you get a lead anchor, and then in the lead anchor, you can drill an eye hook or a hook, depending on what you need for that end of the clothesline to hook to.
Okay.
And so you're basically taking a masonry drill bit that is the proper size. That's real important that it's the right size for the lead anchor. And you're drilling that into the wall, probably about 1.5 inches. And then you put the lead anchor in. And then when you're screwing the eye hook or whichever you're using or eye bolt into that, it will expand into that concrete. And because lead is fairly soft, it conforms to the porous nature of the concrete, and it'll hold substantial amount of weight there. I always like to go an extra step and taking a little bit of epoxy glue that you can buy in the double tubes, and I like to coat it with that a little bit before I place it in there. That keeps it from spinning and gives it just a little extra strength when you're doing that.
Oh, wonderful. And I said to myself, I have to see if I can. I sent you guys an email, and I said, if anybody knows how to do something right, it's you guys. There's no question about that.
Oh,
well, thank you.
I appreciate that. I hear you watch the television show from time to time.
Oh, every weekend we watch it. Yes, we do.
Oh, well, good. We've got we've been working on a lot of new shows that'll be coming up very, very soon, or are already airing. So we appreciate that. And I think I hear a bird in the background, huh?
Oh my God, you can't make this stuff up, Yes.
I'm thinking of getting a cockatiel myself.
What do we have there? Tell us the name of the bird. Tell us about it.
I wish I had a clue. Honest to God, Danny, I don't have a clue. I mean, we have all kinds of screaming birds down here, and dive bomb. We're right on the lake, so there's dive bombers in the lake, and it gets crazy.
Oh, I thought it might have been a pet bird that was sitting there trying to get on the radio. I wasn't sure. So.
I think the bird heard that you were calling Danny, and he wanted to add his 2 cents worth. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, boy. Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah, of course. This is Murphy's Law. I mean, Well, but listen, thank you guys so very, very much, and I really appreciate it, and that's that.
well, I certainly appreciate you being a part of the show, and really appreciate you watching our television show, and if we can help you with anything else, you know what to do. Just give us a call.
I sure will, Danny. Thank you so very much once again, and you guys have a great weekend, okay?
Okay, you as well, Joan. Thank you very much.
That was a very loud bird, yeah.
I thought for sure that bird was sitting right on her shoulder.
Me too.
I could just see her sitting there with her parakeet and things like that. But when we're out taping the television show, a lot of times, you'll have the birds or the cicadas or different things like that, and they just can be so loud. And what do you do? I mean, of course, we also have we're in neighborhoods all the time, and we'll also have the barking little dog next door.
Uh-huh.
So we figured out what to do on that. So I got some little doggy tranquilizers.
You did
and
not.
I put them in this dog biscuit, and I go over there, just toss it over there. It usually knocks them out for a couple hours, and we're able to get a little bit of work
He's
done.
kidding, by the way, folks. He is kidding. No letters, please.
We have thought about getting some, healthy, nice dog biscuits to when we're about to, because they'll sometimes, in neighborhoods, I'm sure a lot of you that are listening live in neighborhoods where they have the yappy little dog next door.
Yeah.
And, but this particular week we were taping, and we had, let's see, what was that dog called? Marmaduke.
Marmaduke.
Isn't that it?
Yeah.
Marmaduke, the big great
yeah.
name. We had Marmaduke next door, we needed a big dog biscuit for him, but we get plagued with that a little bit every now and then.
Yeah, well, when we're shooting Simple Solutions, we're often outside, and I don't mind the dog, if it's a sort of a natural sound, a dog or maybe a car driving by or something. But when you get someone out there with a leaf blower or a weed whacker, a string trimmer, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, it's not going to be 3 or 4 seconds if they're out there with a leaf blower, and so we have to either go inside or just wait them out,
And a lot of times on the lawn services, they're not doing just one house.
Yeah, that's right.
They roll into a cul-de-sac and they're doing like 5 or 6. So we generally have some little today's homeowner hats or today's homeowner something, and we'll send one of the producers over and say, hey, if you could give us 5 minutes, you can have this hat. And they say, sure, And so we usually can buy a little time with a hat or a mug or something along those lines.
Or a hot dog with a little tranquilizer shot into it.
No,
don't do that.
Don't
do that.
But it's always interesting. But usually people are very, very nice, and when they realize that that it's encroaching on our audio or something like that, they're pretty good about that. Right now, we're going to talk to Evelyn in Washington. Evelyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, absolutely. We want to see if we can explore this a little bit. So tell us about the situation, because this is really something a lot of homeowners have heard over the last few years. And so tell us about your situation right now.
Oh, okay. Our problem is that we have dust in the ducts.
Mm-hmm.
And our HVAC person said that perhaps a new product, I assume, I don't know how long it's been on the market, but it's called Aeroseal, that will seal the inside or the interior of the ducts as opposed to taping it on the outside, I believe. So I'm not familiar with this product. I think it's probably a bit more expensive than using the taping, the tape method. And I don't know. I don't feel comfortable, or I don't know enough about it whether to determine if it's non-toxic. Is it safe to use? Is it reliable?
Okay.
I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Well, a lot of times on things like this, you can make the assumption that it is safe to use, or how could they get it on the marketplace? And
okay.
That's not true for everything, but, you would think if it is harmful to, people in the homes, that it would never make it to market. It wouldn't pass and everything. But one of the key questions and big questions is it effective? Is it worth that expense that you're going to pay?
Yes.
My buddy Joe Truini, in addition to being such a charming individual on the radio each and every week, he is also a great writer, and he has written and researched many articles, hundreds and hundreds for all kinds of outlets. And Joe, I know you and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, and you actually explored this in one of the articles you had to write about sealing the inside of ductwork. What did you find out through that process?
Yeah, Evelyn, this system, Aeroseal, it's relatively new to most people, but it's been around for quite a while. It does work, but and a few years ago, I was writing pretty regularly for This Old House magazine, and I was going up to Boston. I live in Connecticut. I was driving up to Boston to work with the crew. And Richard Trethui, the plumbing and heating contractor at This Old House, he had recently installed or worked with an installer sealing some ducts from the inside. Okay. And we were talking about that. And it's just a fascinating system. And you wonder, how could it possibly work? But it does indeed work. And the reason there was even a need for this is that on average, 20 to 30% of the air in the average home is leaking out of the ducts. So imagine that. Imagine 20 or 30% of your cooling and your heating not reaching the rooms that they're supposed to reach. So how do you seal it? Well, the way they're supposed to be sealed is there are supply ducts and return ducts, right? The supply ducts that's where the hot air in the winter and the cold air in the summer travels to the rooms. Then the return air is just the opposite. So, but the supply ducts should be taped or mastic. This should be sealed and insulated. Unfortunately, typically these ducts are just insulated, but all those joints aren't sealed. And in fact, if you turn on your system and go downstairs or wherever and take a look, you'll see sometimes the insulation being blown away. And that's because all those joints between these sheet metal ducts should be sealed with a mastic or tape. Typically, a mastic is better. A mastic is just this really thick, gray, looks like paint almost, that they brush on and it hardens, and that'll seal it. And then they insulate it. So, but that doesn't always work. So now you have these leaky ducts. What are you going to do? You're going to pull off all the insulation and wrap them all and seal them all. That's one option. Or the Aeroseal system was designed to just spray it in. It's just a super thin liquid sealant that it becomes an aerosol, and they spray it through the ducts, and it seals every little teeny tiny hole. Okay. The only downside is, as you suspected, it's a little more expensive than manually sealing ducts, which is pulling off the insulation, putting on the mastic, and reapplying the insulation. In fact, it costs about half as much to do it manually as opposed to Aeroseal. It might cost on average the Aeroseal might be between $1,500 and $2,500 for the average house, more or less. The other big thing it does is it reduces dust. You were talking about dust, because if you don't seal the return air, what that's doing is that's sucking all that dust from all over the house into the system and blowing it throughout your house. And the other advantage that Aeroseal is, so if let's say you do this manually, you pull off all the duct insulation, you mastic this joints, and you put the insulation back. What about all those ducts that are inside the walls and ceilings? What happens to those?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't get to those, but the Aeroseal system can, because that gets blown through all the ducts. It will not seal a hole larger than 5/8 inch diameter, which is a pretty big hole actually. But if there is any crack or hole bigger than 5/8 inch diameter, the Aeroseal won't work. So that's one of the limitations. But if you're asking, does this system work? It absolutely works.
Okay. You've eased my mind. Thank you.
Oh, I'm very glad. I'm happy to have done that.
Okay. And thank you for all the tips. I watched today's Homeowner every week.
Oh, good.
Oh, well, good,
Wonderful
Evelyn.
tips.
Well, we appreciate that, and we'll keep it coming at you. And we're glad that you're now part of the radio show family as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot, How Doers Get More Done. One of the best things that we love about our kitchen is the great smells that will fill the room when something really good is cooking. Like frying baking smells really good on Sunday mornings, but the grease it leaves in the kitchen sink doesn't smell so good later in the week. That's why Green Gobbler has created their lemon-scented BioFlow drain strips. You simply insert one of these strips into the P-trap of the sink, and it slowly releases a powerful blend of enzymes to digest and liquefy food, grease, soap scum, sludge, and other organic matter that tends to clog up the drain lines. The result is a clean, deodorized drain that works a lot more efficiently, and the strips are safe to use on all sinks, tubs, and shower drains. Plus, they're beneficial for septic tanks. So for more information on these Green Gobbler lemon scent BioFlow drain strips, log on to HomeDepot.com. One of the things we have a lot of fun with is when I can sit back, turn the microphone over to my buddy Joe for another simple solution.
All right, thank you, Danny. When building cabinets, bookcases, shelving units, anything like that, you often will nail a solid wood face frame on the front edges of this project, right? The problem is when you glue them and nail them on, then you have to go back and fill the nail holes and sand it, and there's a lot of extra work. So here's a simple solution how you can avoid all these tedious steps by eliminating the nails altogether and fasten the face frames with a biscuit joiner. I've been using a biscuit joiner now for, they've been around for well over 20 years, and I love them. I use them all the time. If you're not familiar with them, you can Google them and find out exactly what it is. It's a simple electric tool that cuts a little slot, and then you put in a spline called a biscuit, and it looks kind of like a football, but it's flat. It's like 1/8 inch thick, but anyway, a wooden biscuit. Okay, so you use the biscuit joiner to cut the slots in the back of the face frame, and then the corresponding slots in the front edge of the cabinet or the shelves or wherever it's going. Then you simply secure the face frame with glue in the biscuits. They're usually made out of beech, wood biscuits. And so you just glue them into the slots, these biscuits into the slots. You tap it on with a mallet, and that's it. The glue will dry and hold it, and they're incredibly strong. You'd be surprised once that glue dries. Now, one little tip is, though, when you put these beech biscuits are compressed, meaning they go through a machining process where they're under heavy weight, squashed down a little bit. And when you put them in the slots and they start absorbing that glue, they swell and they wedge in there. So as soon as you put them in there, get them where you need them to be, because once they swell up, they're a little hard to remove. But that's the trick, using the biscuits instead of nails to put on the face frames.
Now it's time for our podcast question of the week, and this question comes from Chantel in Texas. My name is Chantel, and I live in Sherman, Texas. I live in a one-story brick home that was built 15 years ago. I was considering getting spray foam insulation put into my attic between rafters to help me save on my heating and cooling costs. We just survived this past week. I kept my electricity but lost water with the horrific temperatures and outages. I thought if I had this insulation and I did lose power, it would help keep my attic warmer and my pipes better protected. I wanted to know your thoughts on this. Would it be worth it? Pros and cons, and any idea of the cost. Thanks so much for your advice you give me. I always watch and enjoy your television show and your radio show. And of course, this again, we knew a few weeks ago there in Texas just suffered so much damage because of the uncharacteristic cold and freezing temperatures and so forth. And Joe, certainly the people considering using foam is something that we get almost every week.
Right.
What do you think on something like this? I mean, if you have pipes in your attic and you do not have a foamed encapsulated home, certainly you're going to experience or can experience cold enough temperatures on uninsulated piping that can be a problem. But as we've talked about before, as we go through the foam insulation and we talk to homeowners and explain to them that any insulation you have in your attic now has got to be removed before you put the foam insulation in there. That certainly throws a lot of people off, and I almost wonder for Chantel if we might suggest maybe just insulating those pipes real well. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, only because what they experienced in Texas, I mean, it's the first time it's ever happened, and what are the chances of it happening again? And would insulating, spraying foam into the underside of the roof prevent those pipes from freezing? They might not help them anyway. So I think even if Chantel was to spray foam between the rafters, she would still have to insulate those pipes, because I wouldn't take a chance that this ever happens again. And
that's right.
Unlikely to happen again. But if it did, you would be relying on the pipes, which are exactly the same as they were before she insulated. She just insulated the underside of the sheathing. So I think the first step would be to insulate the pipes. If this was in a colder climate further north and freezing was an issue ongoing, then we could address some other concerns she might have and other methods. But I think in this case, I agree. I think I would just insulate the pipes better, and the attic floor too.
Yeah, exactly. You can always upgrade that insulation, and as a general rule, any attic insulation needs to be at least 15 to 16 inches deep, regardless of what kind you have. But Chantel, if you achieve that level of insulation and you wrap all of your pipes that are in any of the areas that you can find, even if it's in the garage, under the house, in the attic, any place like that, very easy to put that foam insulation around it, and that'll save you money really every day of the year, because, like your water heater, we talk about, how you have water coming from your water heater going over to a sink or a shower. It's losing BTUs as it goes along. It'll lose a lot less if it has that nice insulation all the way on it, the foam insulation that's readily available. So hope that helps you out, and I certainly hope for you and everybody that experienced all of that terrible, terrible temperatures there in Texas never have to go through that again. That was certainly a terrible experience. Seeing the pictures and everything really made us think of you guys. Hey, we appreciate you listening to the Today's Homeowner podcast. And if you would like to ask us a question, it's as simple as todayshomeowner.com/podcast. And keep those great reviews coming. And remember to share the Today's Homeowner podcast with all of your friends. I'm Danny Lippard, along with my buddy Joe Truini. And thank you so much for listening to this Today's Homeowner podcast.